I can't believe this day has come. A fully redesigned Mac Mini. I mean, for real, this thing has been in the same form factor since 2010, if you can believe it. That's 14 years. But I gotta tell you something about the Mac Mini. I am a big fan. It was actually the computer that I first purchased for myself to edit videos for this very YouTube channel a very, very, very long time ago. And holy smokes, if you had showed me this back then, I would have not believed it possible. This thing is tiny. Oh, holy crap. Wow. It's, oh yeah. You know, gotta say, I love the environmental strategy, but the paper is just not as satisfying as the old cellophane used to be. In any case, holy smokeroonies, that is a tiny computer. And then we've got whatever else is left in the oh, just a power cable. What the heck? Look at that! There's no punch marks on the actual power connector. You'll see this very commonly in Japan and in China because China uses the same plug that we do. But here in the US, originally those holes were, in theory, designed to be for retention so that it would stay in the wall. That's not really the case anymore. It doesn't do anything. But they don't normally ship plugs like this to the US because Americans think they look weird just because we have like 2 generations now of the other cable. But look at that. I've never seen, like, I almost kind of wonder if it's a mistake. Like, did they send me a Chinese power cable? Look at that. Is that a thing? Has anybody else done that? Ah, don't forget about our little literature here. No stickers. Stickers are not environmentally friendly. You still get a full color instruction leaflet. Okay. And of course, legal information. Oh yes. Okay, frankly though, who cares about the Mac Mini if not to see the insides? So, we are just going to start with the teardown. Let's go to the back here. You can see that power button that's on the bottom. And you know what? Yeah, it's kind of corny, but honestly, how often are you turning on and off the Mac Mini? Frankly, I think this is actually probably better because there's an actual depression in the button. One of the issues I have with the Mac Studio is that they put it on the back of the machine and it's like the same extrusion, like it's on the corner and it feels exactly the same. Even if you know where it is, it's hard to identify. So this being like a very obvious position and with a dip in it, honestly, I like it. Okay, there's no visible screw holes down here. They're definitely not under this rubber foot. So I'm guessing that this is just either glued or snapped into place. So let's try a little bit of suction cup magic. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this isn't gonna be a problem at all. Hold on. Oh, that did not, that did not help. Okay, hold on. Too wet, too wet. Don't tell Apple I'm doing this, they would cry. Check that out, there we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna slide this little spudger around. Maybe I'll switch to the plastic one because the metal one, you know. Oh, yep, there's one snap right there. Okay, I don't wanna get too close to the power connector. That's a little creepy. But I do not wanna damage the ribbon cable that is certainly going to this power button. There is a little adhesive, by the way. It is giving a little bit, which is why I think it's going back down. Oh yeah, no problem. Oh yeah, there's some very obvious foam tape here. I just ripped through that. So that's a replaceable part. And then the foam over here looks like it mostly stayed intact. So you've got your 4 snaps here, but then you've also got adhesive on the opposite corners to kind of hold stuff into place. But we've got our power button here, easy peasy. And it looks like this is just a connector that's flush seated, so we can just pop that puppy out right there. There's the bottom of our Mac Mini. All there is to it, and this is just literally plastic. That means there's the possibility in the future for some pretty sick mods to the bottom of this machine. RGB, anybody? Put some glowage on the bottom? I like that. Oh, I can already tell that this machine is a work of art. The bottom of it is really simple. Okay, so you've got all these vents down here. This is obviously for your air intake. There's a blower fan underneath here that's sucking all the air in, and then you can see here this shroud. This is the exhaust. It's very clearly shaped to kind of spit it out the back of the machine away from the intake, which is good because you don't want it to spit out hot air only to be sucked back into the machine. And then the only other thing that's visible on the bottom here is an SMC battery, which is really interesting. It looks like that's removable. And that's great because that is an expendable, battery. They last many, many years, but you can replace it quite easily without having to tear the whole machine down. And then you've got what are three certain to be Wi-Fi antennas. Let's keep pulling it down. I'm gonna use here my handy LTT precision screwdriver. They sent this over and it looks nice. Check mine out. It is in Snazzy Labs blue, which means that it kind of just looks like the iFixit precision screwdriver, but this does something that the iFixit precision screwdriver does not do. Are you ready? It's a fidget spinner and it's got bit storage, which is pretty handy. And then we'll just pull this puppy off. And wow, that's all there is to it. It's literally just sitting right there. We've got a nice name brand Panasonic cell. This is a BR1632A. I'm like, that's not a 2032, that's pretty small. And yeah, these last many, many, many years, but it is nice that it's just ready for the taking once you need to replace it, which is great. That is super cool. There we go. And then we will be cautious because this is certainly attached with a ribbon cable. And yes, it is. Holy smokes. Okay, so it's the best way to reveal this bad boy. Here we go. Ribbon cables, they don't really like to be flexed. And with those screws removed, let's take this tiny plate off. And oh yeah, just as I suspected, there's some foam there. That's pretty easy peasy. And then here you go. Yeah, this is pretty simple. This is just pretty much our Wi-Fi and Bluetooth networking. So this comes with Bluetooth 5.3 and Wi-Fi 6E, which is a little bit of a bummer. Wi-Fi 7 is not that much more expensive to put on. It's on the new iPhones, and it's so much more performant than Wi-Fi 6E that I really wish it had been on this generation. This board being modular and removable means that it will be easy peasy in future generations for them to put Wi-Fi 7 on board. But yeah, why not just do it now? That's kind of strange. You've got three little push coaxial connectors that go out to the antennas, and I was correct in assuming those to be antennas. And then you've got your little power button here that just goes from this cable directly into this little header, and that's just an old school push button shorting two contacts together. So you could take a screwdriver, put it right there, and the machine is on. And then we've just got one of these little push fit connectors that we can come under here and just with a little gumption. There we go. Pop that thing off and our board is freed. I do want to see what's on the underside of this because we do have that SMC battery connector and it is kind of interesting. I want to know what it looks like. So let's move this to the side. Let's pop these little coax connectors off. Oh, that is so satisfying. It is so nice to see that this stuff is not glued in. A decade ago, it would have been. And oh, there you go. Your little networking board comes out just like that. Looks like a Necco. Do you guys remember Neccos? Oh, they were so good. I'm gonna pop this in my mouth. It doesn't taste that good. Okay, so we've got our little tiny board right here, and well, yeah, it's super simple. Down here on the bottom, we've got our battery contactor right here. It's just a little bit of conductive foam, and then it has some contact here. So this would be your negative side, and then the positive side is just done through these little screw holes where the retention plate is. Pretty simple and pretty clever. And then yeah, you've got your networking, and that's all she wrote. This is a really, really simple board, but I like it. Let's dig deeper. Wow. This thing is gorgeous. Okay, so we've got our blower fan. As I mentioned previously, all the holes on the bottom direct air right into this little thing. This spins, sucks air in through here. We'll see if it carries it through the rest of the system, which it kind of suggested in the teardown or in the product video that it does. And then yeah, spits it all back out here through the shroud. So let's remove this fan to get a better look. And now with that finicky ribbon cable removed, we can just pull out the whole fan shroud assembly. Check it out. Yeah, so the blower's in the middle, and then I'm betting that it kind of intakes from both sides because you have to draw fresh air in from the bottom of the case, but you also want to pull in some of the ambient air that's generated by the components and kind of mix the air up in the system, right? Air can only come in through the bottom. There's a little bit maybe that comes through the ports here, but you're mostly pulling cold air in through the bottom and exhausting it out here, but you do need to circulate the air inside the case a little bit to pull some heat away from some of the hotter components. Of course, the SoC right here, this is connected to a copper heat pipe that goes directly to this exhaust vent. So this is where the majority of the heat in the system is going. It's pulled very efficiently away from the rest of the machine, immediately goes up to this exhaust vent and is just directly shot out the back. So I'm betting that the other components don't generally get that hot because the SoC, being the hottest, of course, component in the system, automatically gets rid of that hot air. And then I'm betting that the fan kind of just mixes up the rest of the air, pulls it in and sucks it back out. So components like, wait, hold on. Do my eyes deceive me? Is that a removable SSD? Okay, guys, this is actually a big deal because, well, Apple's been talking about sustainability and repairability for years and years and years, but they have historically soldered crucial components directly onto the board. So with the Mac Mini back in 2014, they started soldering memory. Storage was still keyed up until 2018. And then in 2018, they started soldering memory and RAM onto the board, unless you got the i9 Mac Mini, the one that came in space gray. If you did that, the storage was soldered, but you could get removable memory that was kept in a little Faraday cage. I have a teardown video from a few years ago where I showed that. But the Mac Mini has always been a solder everything first, and it's a cost-saving measure. In their higher end machines where pros expect to be able to upgrade stuff, they've still done some semblance of upgradability. And I say some semblance because, well, look at this SSD. This isn't just some M2 you can go get at the store. This is some proprietary shenanigans here. How does this get removed? It just slides out. It's not hinged like most. Wow, I don't love that. So then you just pull it out and then you lift it up. Normally, you've kind of got a springboard design on PCs. Yeah, that's not present here. But check it out. We've got, oh, that's great too. So this is the 256 gig SSD model. This is the base storage. And one of the problems that we've had with Apple computers for a few years now is that on that bottom configuration, they just use a single 256 gig flash chip. Because there's accommodations for two, so that if you needed 512 or a terabyte, you could upgrade to larger NAND chips. But rather than having two 128s, they've had just one 256. And that makes the SSD quite a bit slower, and it reduces the overall lifespan of the SSD. And check this out. They've gone back to two. So this should be a very fast SSD. Each chip on each side is 128 gigs, and it will presumably be upgradable, if not directly from Apple, by, DOS Dude 1, changing out the actual flash chips with a reballing machine. Okay, what next? I'm still taken aback by the SSD. That's so wild. Let's address the speaker, which, well, I'm the type of weirdo, as you guys know, that buys a computer and then immediately takes it apart. So I have not even turned this thing on. But Dave 2D said that the speaker, while still not very good, is much improved from the prior Mac Mini, which was so bad that it was effectively unusable. It actually would bother me all the time because it would show up as the default system audio device. And so if I didn't have my headphones plugged in all the way, or when I was using HomePods, the Mac Mini would be like, hey, I've got a speaker. And I'm like, no, you don't. It sucks so bad. Just ignore yourself. Because the old one was basically the size of this little tiny driver. It doesn't look like they've changed the driver, but check this out. They have this whole new entire chamber. Part of this is probably for increasing the bass. The other part of it is almost certainly for controlling airflow. So I bet this serves a dual function. But that's pretty handy, and this connector just pulls straight off. All right, speaker removed. Wow, that's wild. Look at that. Each individual port is screwed in on its own. So rather than being a single assembly, they're two little loosey-goose connectors that you just screw into position. Wonder if that's like a tolerance thing, or I don't know. Kind of interesting. All right, let's remove them. Let's see if these connectors pop out. Oh yeah, they do. Look at that. There's a little tiny sticker, a little tiny bit of adhesive holding them into place, probably to help during assembly and install. And then you just pull this thing out. Wow, that is elegant. And those are handsome. Have you ever seen a USB-C port? This is kind of interesting because the majority of the thickness is in the case, right? And so this is basically just the bare connector. So you could get a USB-C device to fit in here, but you'd have to hold it perfectly in place because that's what the case does. Nice, okay. This thing is never going back together. And you know what they say about screws? Put them to the very, very edge of your somewhat unstable table. Somebody says that, I think. Then we're gonna rotate the machine back to, have I scratched the heck out of the top of this? No. Well, a little bit. Maybe tear your Mac Mini down on a padded surface. I will tell you, using a Torx driver of this length at this angle, not enjoyable. Should have gotten a longer screwdriver. Thanks a lot, Linus. You ruined this whole teardown. I'm just kidding. This time around, I want to show you a little close-up. So there's just a tiny bit of adhesive that kind of holds the component into place. And then once you free that, it kind of just pops out. Ooh, wait, hold on. Hold on, hold on. I forgot about the status LED. Wait your turn. Hold on. All right, so this thing is kind of a persnickety mother fricker. But this one, hey, check it out. I did it without tearing anything. We've got our little tiny SIL status indicator light ready to go. We've got our 3.5mm headphone jack, and well, that's all she wrote. Okay, and now it's time to pull out the rest of the logic board, and I can already tell you that there is a pretty cool design thing that Apple has done on a few of their machines. Check this out. See right here and see right here? These two screws actually connect to the bus bar of the power supply. So this is the voltage coming into the board, which is pretty awesome. So rather than having to have some big, huge connector or whatever, it connects right directly to this PCB, which is pretty sweet. And those are subsequently some pretty meaty screws because they're handling quite a bit of power. Oh boy, this is a tight fit. Who would have figured? Wow. I want to use the SSD slot as leverage, but that's probably not a good idea. Come on. What if I did this? Let gravity help me. Oh yeah, that's a better idea. Okay. Okay, let's rethink here. I've been trying to pull it out this way. What if I tried to push it the other way? That actually kind of works. Hold on. It's definitely, we got to get these ports out of the way. Because if I push it back, it doesn't ease all the way up, and then the board's not going to clear past these little knuckles. So we've got to go from back to front. Be smarter than the computer. Am I dumb? Hold on. Hold on. Sparta! Okay. Now let's pull, we've definitely got a cable that's still attaching to the power supply down there, so. Yeah. Oh, check out that tiny little thing. That's definitely not carrying any, reasonable amount of electricity. Interesting. Yeah, no, we'll come back to the logic board in a minute. We've got to talk about this power supply because this is a work of art. So you've got your AC inlet right here, and then it's going to some power filters and transducers. Then you get to your PFC. This is your power factor correction capacitors. These are the same kind of design we saw in the studio display teardown, where the capacitors are actually pass-through on the board, which is an unbelievable added expense, but gives you the ability to reduce the Z depth of your actual power supply, which helped them make this thinner and thinner. Then you've got your kind of filter capacitors here. This appears to be a big old DC to DC step down. So I don't know, I'm kind of out of my depth here, to be honest with you, but this is beautiful. I do want to see what brand these PFCs are because these filter capacitors are Capsong, and that brand is like okay, not great, which is not ideal in a computer where this is all buried at the bottom of the entire computer. There are a bunch of kind of Japanese capacitor brands that would be much preferred, and Apple used to use the top of the line, nicest of the nicest caps in their PCs and Macs years and years ago, and they've kind of started to cheap out a little bit, and that's kind of a bummer, because these are components that in theory can fail. And if you need any proof of that, just go on eBay and look up like Mac Mini power supply. They are a dime a dozen, they're everywhere. And it's because these are components that ultimately can fail. Okay, yeah, so there's the underside. Those are indeed pass-through PFC caps, and they are Tycon, yeah. So same deal, decent brand, not fantastic. But wow, look at that power supply. That is just absolutely gorgeous. Okay, here we go. You ready for the wattage? It's probably listed on the website, but I can tell you here too. That makes it more fun. Output is 12.6 volts at 12.3 amps. So that is a 150 watt power supply. Pretty cool. And yeah, input voltage 110 to 240, 50 to 60 hertz at 2.5 amps. Easy peasy. This is model PA1161 revision A. Yeah, that's gorgeous. Okay, so here's some interesting trivia I now remember as I see the inside of this case, which is unlike any other Mac I've seen before. This is the first fully carbon neutral Mac. Not only does that mean that it was manufactured in a factory that's running on 100% renewables, but they're also covering via carbon credits and a couple of other somewhat cheaty ways, but good, the expected power usage of the entire Mac's lifespan. So the energy that you are going to use in your home running this machine is accounted for financially by Apple in the sales price of the product, which is pretty cool. Last but certainly not least, and this is more important to me, they are using 100% post-consumer recycled content wherever possible. So all the rare earth materials are 100% recycled content, all of the gold traces on the PCB, 100% recycled, and so too, for the first time ever in a Mac, is the aluminum. And this has allowed them to do something new and very unusual that they haven't done before, and that is extrusion. Typically, they're using a CNC mill to take a big chunk of aluminum and mill it down like crazy. It takes an incredible amount of machine time and energy to do so. This is not. It's just extruded kind of in the way that you're used to seeing like plastic toys extruded. They can do it much less expensively, much quicker, and frankly, when it's sitting on your desk, you'd never know. Pretty cool. All right, let's get to the logic board, shall we? This thing is tiny. Truly a laptop to behold. Let's remove the heat spreader, shall we? So we're gonna have to do the underside. Oh, look at this. We've got a little plate that just snaps on that separates the PCB from the power supply. It's just this little plastic clip-on. This is bizarre. Oh, oh! Come on, you stinker. Yeah, you're not really supposed to take this off, I don't think. Check this out. We've got a bunch of torn copper interface material. I am going to take this one off, and you kind of want to try to somewhat remove them at the same time because they are spring steel, so this is going to come flying off. Also make sure that your screwdriver stays in place because that thing, as you saw there, does not want to stay in place. And that's good because the idea is that it applies even tension across the whole entire die of the SoC so that it makes good contact with the plate for efficient thermal energy transfer. All right, and we can see here on the underside of the board that this PCB is dense. Part of the reason why is because we have those bus bars coming in from the power supply. So that little connector that was connected to the power supply is almost certainly for basic stuff like thermals and diagnostic information. Most of the energy is coming straight into the board. It's probably a 12-volt signal. And so you see tons of components down here on the bottom for filtering and rectification. You see VRMs for the SoC. This is just a densely populated board. And if we go to the flip side here, well, we'll be able to remove the actual shroud once we get these two screws removed. Okay, and once I finish removing this screw, this thing should pop off. Sometimes it requires a little bit of force. Oh, that required no force at all. Makes me wonder if they even turned this machine on. Okay, and yeah, check this out. So this is almost certainly kind of nickel-plated brass or nickel-plated copper, and then you've got copper, a little tiny copper square here in the middle to make contact with the M4 itself. So the M4 is right here, and then you might be wondering, well, what is the little two thermal patches for this? Well, this is your memory. So this is your on-die shared unified memory. So this is used by the GPU, the CPU, it's used by the neural engine, it's used across the whole processor, and it is on die. So that is all right there. We've got the M4, and is there even a marking on this thing? All right, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm gonna just wipe this off because I do want to see what it looks like. No, the special paste. Yeah, check this out. That's just an Apple logo and a part number. There's no M4 to be seen. What the heck, man? You can tell as I rub it away that this goop is special. This is not your average goop. There you go. A little Apple logo, and that's it. A tiny part number. Would you like to know what it is? E02SUA something something something, Apple 1206. There you go. You've got your keyed SSD, which is very close to the SoC, which makes sense because they still want storage to be fast and the seek times to be low. You've probably got some crap under here. I don't really want to open these because you can never get these back the way that they're supposed to go. And sometimes I'm like, do they actually serve a purpose or is it just cosmetic? I don't know. You know, as I'm pulling these apart, I'm starting to think that maybe I know why those stickers are made out of copper. I bet this is like a pseudo Faraday cage. I bet it's for EMF interference so that it doesn't screw up the Wi-Fi stuff, the antennas on the bottom. That's my guess, because why else would they spend time and money putting these weirdo metal stickers over something that's clearly not for thermal heat transfer? That's what it is. It's for EMF. All right, let's get to this shield. This is one of those ones that's stuck all the way down. Sometimes these are a real pain in the butt to get off, and you can't get them off without basically destroying them. But this one doesn't look too bad. Oh yeah, well that was the easiest thing ever. Okay, so let's get a look at the board, right? We've got the M4, which is our SoC. We've got our CPU, our GPU, our neural engine. That's all under here. We've got our on-die memory. These right here, these are Thunderbolt controllers. So we've got our 3 ports back here, and we've got controller 1, controller 2, controller 3, which is pretty cool. Right here, we've got our HDMI. Luckily, and thankfully this time around, it's HDMI 2.1. On the last Mac Mini, if you had the Pro variant, you had HDMI 2.1, but if you had the base model, it was only HDMI 2.0. Now it's 2.1 across the board, and this is probably the controller. Oh yeah, that's from Parade, and they definitely make display controllers. So that's that, and then your Ethernet. Where the heck is your Ethernet controller? I don't see that at all. Oh, yep, this is definitely it, because this is a Broadcom number, BCM 57762. So that's for gigabit Ethernet. And then see all these, see this landing pad right here with all these balls? I'm guessing that this is for your 10 gig Ethernet controller if you choose to equip one, because that is a $100 additional option. And so that will certainly sit there in lieu of the little Thunderbolt or the regular gigabit one being there. And frankly, I don't know, it may remain there as a fallback on the 10 gig model, not sure. But yeah, that's all the parts of the board that I understand. You've got some Texas Instruments part numbers over here, and I'm not really sure what those do, but I'm betting it's related to this. This is clearly for DC step down. USB-C can still accommodate 5 volt, right? And so these are almost certainly voltage regulation so that you can output different voltages based on what the device that is plugged into your computer is requesting, because this is just getting 12 volt almost certainly from the power supply, and then it's got to step down to the whatever voltages are requested over USB. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. You've got your 2 connectors here for your Thunderbolt, your USB ports on the front, and you've got a little USB controller right here. You've got, here's your audio port there. So this could be, yeah, this little chip down in the corner. This is probably related to your headphone. And then that's basically it. I mean, it's not basically it. There's a ton of other stuff, but that's basically it for what I understand, which, hey, is better than nothing. So that's it. That's the teardown of the Mac Mini. And now I get to put it back together. Oh dear. Thank you so much for watching. As always, stay snazzy.